How's it going, everybody? I'm Brandon with Electrical Specialists. Welcome to today's episode of Ask Your Local Electrician. Today we're going to be continuing an episode on things your electrician wishes you knew. And on today's episode, we're going to be covering decks, covered porches, and driveways. So as stated in previous episodes on this, we talk about clearance from electrical services. That's our main concern here, is your outside electrical service and clearance when we're talking about driveways, decks, and covered porches. So we don't like to be the bearer of bad news. A lot of times we'll get called out to someone's house to do a minor repair on their electrical service, and we walk up and find out it's inside of a covered porch they built around it, or we walk up onto a brand new deck and the meter is just a couple feet off the ground like this picture here. So you can see how some things might come into play. We wish that person would have reached out to us or the city first. So let's talk about who to reach out to. As we talked about before, we'll just quickly go through it. The National Electric Code, you can look it up yourself, or you can call your local city inspector to have him walk through it with you. I would suggest that because they're the authority having jurisdiction is what it's called, meaning it's their call on what's legal and what's not in your area. So reach out to them first. Then you want to talk to, if you're part of an HOA or the power provider who actually has the utility that you're paying to come to your house, because they actually have more say than your local authority. So reach out to them as well. So when we talk about, let's just go with decks. I mentioned you walk up onto the deck, the meter is really low. Here's actually a graphic that kind of gives an overall. So there's many things we could take from this. Obviously, the meter itself is supposed to be 5 foot to 5'6" off the ground to center. From what you saw with that graphic, obviously it's about a foot off the ground. So that gets into problems with kids being able to mess with it or whatnot. There's lots of stuff that could go wrong there. Now it's no longer up to code, so we have an issue. So we don't want to do with that. We want to have clearance in front of the meter, 3 to 5 feet. So if you build a fence in front of it, if you build something in front of it, if we ever have to come work on it, you're going to have to tear that out. So make sure you got clearance on that. We talk about clearances from overhead. So a lot of that has to do with your power provider. They are not allowed to stand on any roof. So if they need to get on top of the riser and the connection where it meets your house, and you have built a deck, or if you have built a roof over your deck, they actually are not allowed to get up there, at least in our local jurisdiction. So you're probably going to have to get that moved or taken down. So they have to be able to get on their fiberglass ladder to insulate them from any shock and reach off their ladder. So if that's not the way it is, at least in our area, it'll have to be redone. We want to make sure that there's plenty of access around the meter. We talked about space in front of it, space around it. You actually are not allowed to lock it. It has to be accessible. So if you're building a deck, what I've seen people do is they'll build kind of a shelf around their meters that you can open. Some places might allow that. It's not really allowed around here, and it has to be accessible. So think about, you built a nice big screened-in porch around it. There's a door on it that can be locked. Not allowed because it's not accessible. If there's an emergency and they need to come pull the meter, they can't get in. So we want to make sure that that's accessible, or at least put a disconnect outside. Sometimes they'll work with you. That's why you want to reach out to them first. Sometimes they are lenient depending on what you're going to build. So what we want to make sure is we get ahead of this, we reach out to the proper channels, we get the right answers, and we save you time and money. Hey everybody, thanks for watching, hanging out with us. If you have any more questions, or if you want to know more about any of the subjects we cover, go to our website at www.especialists.pro. There's tons of stuff on there to get you through it.